Doesn't it seem like years ago? Well, it wasn't, and it wasn't one impeachment. It was two attempts to remove my old boss from the White House. First, there was that ominous quid pro quo allegation about a completely forthright and above-board phone call with the head of the Ukrainian government saying, look, there's corruption and it should be looked into, even if it leads to, oh, I don't know, former vice presidents and their sons. But they tried and they failed. Impeachment in the lower house and no convictions. But there is, of course, somebody who should be impeached because the evidence is utterly incontrovertible. When it comes to Vice President Biden, who now bears the title of president, in an open setting, on a stage in front of cameras, he admitted bribing the Ukrainian government to fire the prosecutor that was investigating Burisma, the company that was paying his son a cool $83,000 a month.
I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
The brazen boasting about bribery. What does that mean for our national security? Let's ask a man who knows. From the incredible Judicial Watch that fights the swamp every single day on your behalf. If you're not a supporter of Judicial Watch, you should be. He is the head, he is the director of their investigations. Chris Farrell, welcome to the GORKA Reality Check.
Great to be with you, Sam. How are you?
Good. Chris, for those who are not familiar with you and your past, would you just share with our viewers what you did for the U.S. Army for years?
I was an Army counterintelligence officer. I was a case officer. I did a lot of time, spent a lot of time doing counterespionage investigations and also conducting double agent operations. I also commanded the Army's surveillance team. We conducted physical, technical, and aerial surveillance of espionage, foreign espionage agents operating against the United States.
So you are a counterintelligence professional, as was in the U.S. Army, handling agents, understanding the vulnerabilities, the ways our enemies use to steal our secrets. Let me ask you to give your professional opinion now as the Director of Investigations at Judicial Watch on the voice message from Hunter Biden's laptop when he boasts about being in business with the chief spy of Communist China.
I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of literally, Dr. Patrick Koh, the spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who was worth $323 billion, founded, and is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner.
Sadly, it's not an American publication, but we also have this massive report from the Daily Mail that lists the details, the messages, some of them very, very strange, from Hunter Biden's Asian, Chinese, American assistant at the same time, and his boasting of being in bed with, in business terms, with the Chinese chief of intelligence. From the perspective of national security, vulnerability to blackmail, to penetration by intelligence assets, what does this mean? Explain it in layman's terms, Chris.
Well, I mean, the key thing is the Department of Justice and the FBI should be conducting a counterespionage investigation of Hunter Biden and all of Hunter Biden's affiliates and his associates, because what you've just presented is just prima facie evidence or indications that there is a massive, very technical, very highly sophisticated operation being done against or using Hunter Biden as a means of accessing not just the vice president at the time, but now the president of the United States. It's unavoidable. You can't detach these two. Judicial Watch has uncovered 410 times when Hunter Biden traveled on U.S. government jets with his father. He traveled to China 5 times. He traveled overseas 26 times, all on the taxpayer dime with U.S. government protection. And while he's doing these things, he's engaged with or he's in contact with these people that you just mentioned in passing. Any other ordinary American citizen would be the subject of a counterespionage investigation. And in many cases, frankly, given the amount of time that's passed, they would have already been indicted, tried, convicted, and jailed. But because of who Hunter Biden is, he gets the kid glove treatment. It's an outrageous abusive process. It's something that no other ordinary American citizen would ever face, only because they would drop the hammer on them, right? They would be subjected to such scrutiny, to such an aggressive investigation. But when it comes to Hunter Biden, suddenly, you have the 3 monkeys, the see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, right? They said everyone has amnesia. And keep in mind that while President Trump was being impeached over this phony Ukraine scandal you mentioned at the introduction, the FBI, the Department of Justice, had Hunter Biden's laptops. So they watched the impeachment go on when they had in their possession all the evidence that Hunter Biden had on his own laptops. And they sat there with their mouths shut, no indication of what they knew.
Chris, we're out of time, but I have to ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, just the evidence I just played you, what is the level of national security threat and vulnerability that poses to this administration? 1 to 10, 10 being the worst.
11.
Thank you, Chris. That's why you're Chris Farrell, and that's why you're Judicial Watch. Please support Chris, Tom, and the rest of the Judicial Watch team, judicialwatch.org. So, how long will he last? How vulnerable is sleepy, creepy Beijing Biden? I'll give you my answer next on Dr. G's Prescription.